Listen, I don't think about game physics that often, and apparently that makes me not a gamer. So here is why the internet is mad at me today.
You'd be sitting in a design review and somebody'd say, that's not realistic. And you're like, okay, what does that have to, like, explain to me why that's interesting.
He said the same thing as me. Matter if I gamed 12 hours nonstop yesterday and saw that I had a lot of notifications on Twitter and said to my chat, what have I done? And sure enough, the usual. And it's all because of game physics. So let's go look at this today together. So Play for Index posted this comparison of the details of physics between Avowed and Skyrim, which I thought was actually really cool. I thought the video itself was neat. I like this kind of stuff. I like analytical videos. I just didn't understand the importance of it. And that's why I asked the question, because I didn't want to say this is silly or I think this is silly. I said Skyrim clearly has far superior physics. I started with that because I know people are like looking for the red flags of she's just trying to defend Avowed. I'm not playing Avowed. I don't play RPGs. It's why I don't really particularly think about game physics as much. I obviously play around with them, but I don't think about them as aggressively as a lot of people apparently, and I'm not as passionate about it. I mainly play action adventure, a little bit of cozy. I probably maybe should have just prefaced with that, but this was like a throwaway quick comment that I did in like literally 20 seconds. I said Skyrim clearly has far superior physics, but why do people care so much about game physics anyway? You could shoot arrows at a tree IRL for that. And I added that as like a little funny, like, haha, not like an affront to your manhood or something. I don't know how they read this and said, she thinks that Avowed is perfect and Skyrim sucks and she doesn't game and she's fake and everything she said ever in her whole life is wrong and she doesn't use her brain and she doesn't even have a brain because she's a woman and clearly you don't know anything because you don't know about game physics, and how do you not know that game physics is really important, and Skyrim is clearly better than Avowed, how do you not know? And I don't know how they got anything that they got from this, but like, let's actually look at it. I'm not making this up. You can see by the ratio that's already happening here, the comment ratio of 45 to the 27 likes, 14,000 views. This did not go well for me. Again, it was like a 20-second tweet because I just throw out questions sometimes to see what bites. And if it bites well, I might make a video because I'm trying to like triple my video count in the next few months. So, and I've been doing this for a while and it generates interest and I figure out what trending topics are and what exciting topics are. And anyway, I've been doing this for a while. Asking questions works. Clearly, I got a response. Was it the response I expected? No. Was it the response that made me happy? No. It was definitely like a, punch to the gut. But the thing is, I've been dealing with hate comments for years now, and I have found ways to deal with it. One of them is to take it to my community. So we will also be looking in my Discord community and showing what they had to say about this. Okay, so same gameplay and art are more important. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's like my general perspective here. And if we want to look at a summary of my perspective, just real quick for you. I'm not talking about the game. I don't care about either game. I'm an action adventure gamer, not RPG. We've said this. I just want to understand why people care so much about game physics because I personally don't. It's a real question. I'm recording a video on it today. Most people here will look like bullies. The few who actually answer can look helpful and cool, which happened. And so the person I said this to, you will see, or at least there were a couple people I answered individually, and then they came back with like a much better response than the original. Most of the people that I replied to were not like attacking me as a woman. I'm not going to get anywhere with them. But like the people who I could tell there might be something there, they might have something to say. I tried to appeal to their humanity and say, hey, I'm actually asking a question, like legitimately want to hear your point of view, because we're going to learn here. And you'll see that my perspective kind of changed throughout, right? Like I didn't know I cared. And I think I do a little bit. So I said there are many reasons to play games. I just wanted to understand the other side, getting bullied mercilessly for asking things for being the one normal response. I said one, but there were actually probably 3 normal responses out of 45. And then when I talked to people, there were, I think, like 2 or 3 others. So it's still not like the best percentage in the world. Gaming Twitter, if you happen upon this, you should, like the people who run this community, this is a toxic community. I don't know that there's anything to be done about it. I have a lot to say at the end about why people are like this. But anyway, this is Falmana, and I'm going to call out everybody's usernames because I want all of these people on blast, whether they were good or bad. So Corporal Upham was cool. This Fall Mana is not the worst, but says, why do people care about game graphics anyway? Why do people care about game story anyway? Why do people care about gameplay anyway? Why do people care so much about game anything anyway? Well, so a decent response, but also very sassy, doesn't really answer my question. He's just saying, why do you care about anything in a game? Which is kind of a fair response, but also doesn't tell me anything. Like if somebody did say, why do you care about the stories in games anyway? Because games are about gameplay. You should be able to defend that. I said, exactly. We all care about different things. So I wanted to know why everyone's so obsessed with game physics. Look at the title of the video. That's how we got here, right? When it's not something I personally care about, I was legitimately asking to understand better. Didn't get a response. Well, at least at this time, I checked for an hour or so after answering a few people here. This is AltKek420. Because when I interact with something and there is no game reaction, it frustrates me. A gaming have no physics would be like a human with no soul. If you don't understand that, then you must be a casual gamer who doesn't really care about the hobby. Now, this last sentence was like repeated over and over in these comments. Oh, you must be casual. Oh, you don't understand the hobby. You don't care about the hobby. Gaming isn't even a hobby for me. I do it for a living. And before that, it's been a hobby since longer than most of these people have even been alive. I have my N64 back there, and there will be a video coming out on that soon. There's a live stream of it where I did 24 hours of retro gaming. Actually, it was like 30. So listen, and all I do is talk about gaming most of the time. I gamify everything in my life. So it's interesting to me that just because these people disagree with me, they decide to define what I do, what I care about, and what that means. And so I came back a little sassy at this one, but it's like, I played an entire franchise in 27 hours nonstop, no sleep, but go ahead and tell me how I'm not a gamer. Like, I got a little sassy on that one. It's just weird. Like, this is a weird response. Like, oh, if you don't agree with me and if you don't understand what I understand and if you don't see things from my perspective, then you are fake. That is one of those like political things that people do. So because when I interact with something and there's no game reaction, it frustrates me, which this is an important thing. I need you to note game reaction. This is important because this is one of the things I learned very importantly by someone who actually really does know what they're talking about. People like game reaction. And I feel like this is a very canned response because as both game reaction and casual gamer hobby, like those key words seem to be something here. It's like they're like little robots. They have like a canned response here or something. It's very strange. This must be bait, right? Nobody self-called gamer could say this and not be joking. See, again, it's coming at me for being a gamer. And that was _Rafuru. Oh, here we go. Here we go. This is a good one. This is a good one. They just make a lot of assumptions. It's interesting. It feels like if you disagree with a specific point of view, people automatically identify you with a group, which is interesting. It's like if you don't agree with the point of view from one specific group, then you are automatically identified with the other group. I just like talking to individuals because groups suck. You can find any group, any side, anywhere, and there will be people that have blocked me and hate me for any number of reasons, just for like talking about a game. I had a guy that I had like DMs where we had talked about games and like voice chats and stuff and just talked passionately about gaming. And he blocked me because I said something about RDR2 that he didn't like. Feel free to comment if you've had experiences like this. This is kind of a venting video, but it's also a video to get this point out. So let me keep going. I said, I play franchises in the action-adventure genre nonstop, but I don't play RPGs like this, so I'm legitimately asking. Like, I've not played Skyrim. It's one of the most popular games in the world. I'm not saying I won't, but I haven't at this point in time. I don't know why everyone's attacking me instead of simply sharing their excitement about game physics. And this person said, how many hours of Unknown 9 Awakening have you played? I said 0 because I have not. Now, I did have one tweet about it at one point because I thought one game mechanic looked cool and people like went off the rails in the same way because they are grouping me with people. I'm not trying to fight agendas or start agendas. I don't care. I'm here to play games, bro. The core Mackin. How you have gamer in your... See, it's just the same thing over and over and over. How are you a gamer? How are you a gamer when you disagree with me? It's like bro. Have you ever used a brain cell in your life? Bro, I'm going to start roasting people. Hoy, that is not what this video is. Come on, Mad. We got this. And not understand the concept of immersion being important because talking about game physics is not the same as talking about immersion. They're equating the two because in their brain, that's important to them. They could just say that. They could say, well, to me, game physics is immersion, but instead they ad hominem me. This person, Stoner Deer, we found a person. Thank you, Stoner Deer, for being normal. Their at is Robidoo Ethan, a rational, normal human being on Twitter. They said, I quite enjoy the ragdoll physics when I smack people with giant hammers and about. It's definitely amusing. That's the kind of stuff I was looking for, is like either side you're on telling me what you like. It's that easy, man. I mean, again, I sent this tweet like off in like 20 seconds. If I'd thought it through a little bit more and maybe tried to prime them for, I'm on whatever side you're on, and let me stroke your ego, like maybe they would have not come at me like this. But I just asked a question. This person heard me and said, love it. It's a great example of less real being really fun. I don't know why we see realistic as this marker of good versus bad game. It serves different purposes. That's why I'm having trouble here, because people say, oh, if you don't have realistic game physics, game is bad. Which isn't necessarily the case. Some game physics might be a little bit more violent. Parents might want games that don't have those realistic game physics because they want it to be a little bit more child friendly. Like, that's just one example off the top of my head. And we will look at other examples too of the other side. And to me, the problem with a lot of rating systems, reviews, and the way that people talk about gaming is they say it's this or this, it's good or bad, it's black and white, when really I see it all as a spectrum between realistic and not realistic. That doesn't have to be good or bad, right? I mean, maybe, let's keep looking. Okay, we finally made a friend. So this guy was really cool. Physics in games is important because it makes the game world more believable. That's why we'll buy GTA 6 for full price. And I said, but does every game really need to spend millions on that for you to enjoy the game? He says it depends on the game. Look at Half-Life 2. Because that's the thing too. Some people see it as lazy. Oh, it doesn't have what the whole rest of the genre has. I saw that a couple of times. And I'm like, okay, fair. Doesn't meet your expectations. But what if they focused on different elements and they innovated somewhere else and they just let that one slide so that they didn't have to spend millions of dollars on arrows not disappearing or something? I don't know how long it takes to develop some of these realistic things, but maybe those systems were traded for something else that could be really cool in the game. I see it as an opportunity cost. And so if you want something new, you might have to give up something that you're used to. And so that's kind of what I was getting at here. And he said, and I didn't even look at the other comments here, he said, it depends on the game. Look at Half-Life 2. That game didn't cost $100 million to make, yet it has good physics-based gameplay and a good story. I said, sure, but you see how you said great physics. I don't want every game to have great physics. Sometimes I want to bounce around all silly, burn everything to the ground with a torch, and have arrows disappear. It's just personal preference, right? So I'm giving an example of a personal preference, right? He said, well, I'm glad there are different games for different people. So Ethan gets it. Ethan was super cool. And again, I'm talking about innovation, how we'll never get innovation if we just do the same thing over and over. Vercoca now chimes in and says, that's literally what having a preference is. The game either ticks the right boxes for me or it sucks for me. Now he sounded like he was agreeing with me. And then he goes, yours is a very strange position to take. And this is where there's like a huge disconnect for me, because I feel like people are just putting words in my mouth, assuming things about me rather than just saying what they think and then letting me say what I think. Instead, they're just making a lot of assumptions. Here's what I said right before that, by the way, is me too. I just wish people would stop being pretentious about games, because they are. They're being pretentious if they think it's not a sliding scale. If you're saying this is good and this is bad, rather than this is the way that games can be and this is what I expect and here's why I'm upset by it personally, and instead you're saying good, bad, then yeah, it's a bit pretentious to say that this is the only way a game can be. To think that if I'm not with you, then I am not a gamer. That's pretentious, which is what I'm calling out. And I said, saying it has to be attuned to their personal preferences or it sucks, we'll never get innovation that way. I don't know why that's such a strange position to say, hey, maybe we could just talk about games having different things. Actually, one of the things that people got onto me for was taking the opinion that I just look at things as art. I think that comes next, maybe. Oh yeah, I enjoy games for the art that they are, not for how I'd make it. And people went off on that one. They were so mad. You can see 11. You sound like you don't really play games, bingo. Again, that's all they have to say is personal attacks over. And do you know how exhausting it is? Just personal attacks over and over again. I said, I enjoy games for the art they are, not for how I'd make it. But what I mean by this isn't that I'm going to buy every game and I'm financially supporting every game and every game should win and every game should be successful. But every game is valid. Every game is an art that's valid unless it's like morally reprehensible. Maybe somebody knows how to make games and it took them an hour to make like a simple game and they're happy with it and 2 people buy it and everybody's happy, right? Like, cool. Who cares if it made $1 million? That's a valid art. 2 people were happy. Not everybody in the world needs to appreciate a game or an art for it to be art. And that's what I'm getting at here. It doesn't mean that I am even going to ever buy Avowed. I have no interest in Avowed, to be honest. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to appreciate it for what it is. Like, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, yeah, I don't like that you can't do your magical powers at everyone. The funny part is that I'm on their side. I do actually like that stuff. And so if it doesn't have that, I look at what it does have. I don't just look at everything that the game is absent of. I look at what the game has and what story it's trying to tell and what art it's trying to create and what that is. Maybe I don't like it that much, or maybe I like parts of it. The art wasn't made specifically for me. If I commissioned a game and it wasn't what I wanted, yeah, I'd have a lot to say, wouldn't I? And I feel like that's kind of the industry at this point, is like this entitlement as though they've commissioned the game themselves. This guy actually blocked me. Always the dumb B grifters telling the community that their preferences are wrong. Literally didn't do that. I was going to say I literally didn't do that, but I can't because I'm blocked. Always. Did I say that, chat? Let's go back. Let's rewind. We can rewind. Skyrim clearly has far superior physics. I sided with these guys, but why do people care so much about game physics anyway?
That's not realistic. And you're like, okay, what does that have to, like, explain to me why that's interesting.
Did I tell anyone how to think? I said you could shoot arrows at a tree IRL for that. You're welcome to come in and tell me, well, this is better than shooting arrows at a tree IRL, and here's why. It's that easy. So I didn't tell them that their preferences are wrong. I said, why do they care anyway? I asked a question. If I had said, you were all dumb, give me your money because I'm a grifter, a grifter would be saying the popular thing, first of all, changing their mind on every little thing and then just saying the popular thing. No, I say what I think. I don't care about any group. I don't care if I played the grifter game, I'd be wishy-washy as hell, but I'd probably have a lot more money and fans, you know, like, but I'm not doing all that. That's not, if I wanted to give up my soul for money, I'd still be in finance. I'm here to do what I want to do. And so they said, because it's immersion, something about like aiming to fill the whole Skyrim left us in. Some point in development, they said they wanted to go deeper than Skyrim, but less wide. This proved otherwise. So this person still isn't even saying, like, this sounds like a good answer on the surface, but this person still isn't even saying why they like that stuff. They're just saying, oh, well, because they said. So this is aimed at the marketing of the game, which I understand because I've had issues where I expected something from the marketing, like with Cyberpunk, that didn't happen. I get that, but it still doesn't answer my question. It's like people are talking in circles about their opinions rather than just sharing the actual opinion that I asked for. I don't understand. Can people not identify information? Like, what's happening here? Am I crazy? I think realistic physics adds a sort of fun to the game, a whimsy that it helps the experience, but it can't be denied they add a lot to the game. Okay, so this person was normal. Oversimplification, there's no ammo anymore, no lockpicking, inferior physics, streamlining is one thing, but everything I've seen from Avowed is mediocre at best and slog at worst. Okay, so anybody who says slog, and now I'm the one grouping people together, but the majority of people who say slog don't even touch the game. If you're gonna say Avowed is mediocre, you should play it. You should have to go in there and actually experience the game before you're able to say that. And you should be able to identify why you think it's mediocre, what exactly is mediocre about it for you. And even then, I don't like these blanket statements. I like to say, I don't like a game, or this was not. Listen, here's how I do it. This is not for me, okay? This is not for me. It's a personal opinion. The best part of that guy saying that I was deciding everyone else's preferences is that they're deciding everyone else's preferences. Mediocre suggests that you get to decide the quality for everybody else. And then you've got people cursing at me. I would take physics over gameplay over graphics. Physics and gameplay over graphics. Well, gameplay is different than physics. Physics is like a subset of gameplay. Okay, here's where we're starting to take gamer out of your name now. Nick __ D's ladies, man. I guarantee this man has never felt the touch of a lady. Listen, I'm gonna start roasting people, bro. All right, so Gray Fox at Chromatic4130 says women's rights, right? They're coming for me as a woman now because I said something they don't like. That feels like their only move when they feel challenged, rather than actually defend their point of view or prove me wrong, even though all I did was ask a question. There was nothing really to prove wrong. I guess they could like try to disprove the way that I framed the question. If they would like to do that, they could certainly do that and say like, even your premise of your question is silly, and they could tell me why, and that would be a dismantling of my actual argument. But instead they come after my gender. Female gamer doesn't understand why people care about video game physics like clockwork. Again, coming at my gender rather than just telling me why they like it. Oh, here was one. RPGs are about immersion, feeling like you're in the world if the world isn't reactive to you. See, reacting again. That word is so important. It's weird. Have you guys ever said, if the game isn't reacting to me, then I don't like it? Has anybody ever said that? If you have, please tell me, because I've never one time in my life thought this game needs to react to me. Ever. I feel like these are bots. But it was still a good answer nonetheless. If there aren't NPC reactions, interactivity, okay, doesn't feel believable. Okay, so this video right here, we're gonna watch this. Somebody else said, here's an answer to your question. Ender424X and another person said this. So let's take a little break from looking at all of this and look at this video, because this video says exactly that. It's the reaction. So this is the Valve owner, I believe, or the guy that runs it, or the guy that created it. So Gabe Newell, I think that it's fascinating that people got onto me for it. If I was an old guy with a beard, I guarantee it would have been taken better. I need to just make an alt account, to be honest. In a design review, somebody asks,
where you'd be sitting in a design review and somebody say, that's not realistic.
That's not realistic, they say. Okay. And so that's what these Twitter people are saying. That's not realistic. And he says,
and you're like, okay, what does that have to, like, explain to me why that's interesting, because
explain to me why that's interesting. That's what I said.
In the real world, I have to write up lists of stuff I have to go to the grocery store to buy. And I've never thought to myself that realism is fun.
Here's his answer.
Right? You know, in behavioral science, you would say we're explicitly talking about what were reinforcers and what the reinforcement schedule.
So it's about reinforcement schedule. These are getting into behavioral science words, things that they probably say in gaming. So reinforcing the behavior that they want from the gamer. But what's most important is what he says here.
To me, it feels like the wall is ignoring me.
It feels like the wall is ignoring me. Remember when they said reactive? I don't like when the game is ignoring me.
I'm getting a narcissistic injury when the world is ignoring me.
They don't like when the game ignores them. We could really get into some deep psychology about why people care about this a lot. I think some of it just goes with expectations, because the more realistic a game is in some ways, the less you have to think about learning new things. So it makes it easier to jump into and to figure that out so that you can figure out other gameplay elements and not have to focus on that.
So does this, like, to me, I was trying to convey to the user a sense of, yes, you were making choices. Yes, you were progressing.
And so it's a control thing. You are making choices, you are progressing, the game cares about you. So what that tells me is that these guys are upset because the game isn't reacting to them. They don't feel like they have control. They don't feel important. They don't feel like the game feels like they're important. They don't feel like the game makers think that they're important. They don't feel reacted to. They feel lonely and ignored. I think it like eats at something in these people who are probably really lonely. The people who are most passionately answering me are exactly those people. The Venn diagram of people who feel like they have no control in their life and hate women is a circle. We're getting at something here. We're figuring out why they're all coming for me. But let's look at the other side now. You've seen the hatred. You've seen some rationale behind why this matters. We'll take another little look at both at the end, but I want to show you what my Discord said because I brought it to them. Okay, so Grey Joe Mojo in my Discord said, I think the allure of physics in a game promises a random element to the game, which I thought was a win too. And I think that's why I generally don't care about even bugs that much in games, because to me it makes good content as a content creator. And even before that, when I was just a gamer, I just moved on. Like, I appreciated the art for what it is. You know, I just didn't think about it. I mean, think about how few games we had as a kid. I have like 5 or 6 N64 games back there, and I appreciated every one of them and whatever happened. It wasn't a big deal. Like, it just was, right? I wasn't trying to change it. If I wanted to change it, I could build my own game. It's that simple to me. I've never understood this mentality of I've got to control all these things outside of my control. So that's what Gray said. And he said, ragdoll, gravity, and unscripted cause and effect, these can collide in some memorable game moments or outright hilarious moments. And even if you're just playing with like your spouse or your friend on your couch, whatever you're doing, or you're just playing by yourself, You can have those funny moments. You can just laugh and move on. And so another really good example of this. So this is my Discord. You're seeing our conversations. So you can see my strategy down here. You can see that I'm very upfront, open, and building in public about things. I said it's a pretty easy video to do that could hit based on how passionate people seem to be surrounding it. Legitimately, if this video does well, thank you to all the people who bullied me because you showed me how passionately you care about this topic. So I knew it might take off on YouTube as well. That's it. So if I get this packaging right, this might do well. This video might do well. So Dougie said, here are two random examples of the physics of Avowed being creative and fun. Legit think anyone moaning is not playing it or experiencing it, which we can pretty much confirm if we're being honest. We know those people aren't playing Avowed. They're just looking at that one video, which is, a source. It's at least they've looked at something, but here's what he showed. So look at that bear fly, dude. He just lit that bear on fire and it just blew. I love that, dude. What's this one? What's he got? Ooh, okay. So that's not realistic, right? Like magic doesn't work like that, but look how fun it is. So he couldn't throw it at the bridge, but he could throw it down there, which gave him like an element of kind of a puzzle to solve, right? So they can use it in ways that enhance the gameplay if it's not realistic, right? A second clip with the ice ball was completely improvised as the game does not tell you that's a feature at all. So cool, right? A little bit of a puzzle. And so Gray says these are excellent examples. It's goofy, but as an RPG player, I expect it to happen. Experimental gameplay to push the limits of what a game can or can't do. If you always have your expectations met in a game, if it's always realistic, if it always has the same effect, there's no randomization anymore. You already know what's there. And that might be really useful if you have other ways that you're innovating in the game and you don't want people focusing on that. But if you do want people focusing on that as a game maker, it makes sense to have a little bit more randomness or unexpected and not be as realistic so that people don't know what's coming or how to use powers. That's been used in games all throughout. I mean, we've got Portal, the Batman, the old Batman games did that. I just played those. So if you want to talk about games that do that, the action adventure genre is very good at just turning convention on its head. And realism is just convention in gaming. It's something that we all kind of know and have similar examples of or similar understanding of or some base level understanding of similar things that we can kind of figure out from there, which can be very helpful. So realism can be both good and bad, depending on what your goal is as a game maker. This is what gamification is, and that's why I am hesitant to call anything good or bad, because when you are gamifying something, you have a goal. And if you are doing something that doesn't meet that goal, if you're putting in realistic gameplay for something that doesn't meet your goal, then you're doing your game a disservice. I want to look at one more person who was really nice on Twitter, who reached out to tell me, by the way, you're in a community that's probably why you're not getting the responses you expected. But he was really cool. And Mr. Roboto and I definitely, I think, disagree on some takes, but that's what's great because I can learn from people who have a different perspective than me. And I'll tell you kind of what I've learned here after we go through this. Oh, this was a good one. Before I get into his, actually, hold on. It's how the absence of it is handled, which I agree, right? It's jarring for bullets to pass through an NPC. It lessens the immersion for many. That's why people care, right? And so I said, that certainly makes sense. When game elements don't do what we expect from real life or similar games, people have broken immersion. Yeah, that makes sense. I understand that. And I'm glad that he said that because I could kind of think about that. And while I probably understood that subconsciously, I hadn't brought it to the surface. Part of these, debates or conversations or whatever you want to call it as well is bringing to the surface things we might already understand but haven't thought about consciously so that we can break down our thoughts and our arguments and really understand and come to a better understanding and grow and change together. And so it's not necessarily like you're giving someone information. Sometimes you're just bringing something to light that people already know. And that's what's cool about all of these things. And so I said, couldn't the same be said for cool innovations too? Like bullet time, a feature in many popular games from RDR2 to Fallout. Bullet time is it's popular. Not as popular as you'd think. And I don't particularly love it myself, but people do like it. It is immersion breaking. And that's why I didn't like it. But that doesn't make it bad. People really liked it, you know, and I think it did work for that style of game. I just don't really like the gameplay of RDR2. RDR2 and I found our piece in a different way, but it wasn't in the gameplay. So, you know, some people really like it though. And the best part of it is that you get to like chug a drink or light up a cigar in the middle of battle to restore your bullet time Deadeye, you know. So to be fair, they made it fun. They did what they could with it. Depending on the gameplay, I can have fun with it. Like I had some enjoyment of it in Outlaws. Technically, there's one that's kind of like that in Mirage. Anyway, I'm going to get too far deep into the hole. We can't talk about this right now. So maybe it's not the actual physics that matter much, like you said, how. But then it feels like the conversation isn't even about what physics the game has, but how it makes the player feel, which is an entirely different conversation than real physics equals good, as most on this post are suggesting. And that's kind of what I'm getting here, is that I wasn't trying to disagree with anyone. And I think they took it as that. But really, I'm just trying to dig deeper. And a lot of people don't want to use their brains, or they feel like an affront, they feel a challenge, and they think that that means I'm telling them they're wrong, rather than asking them to break down their position. And if anyone understands why that happens so much on the internet, let me know. But I sometimes get a little bit defensive when people say things certain ways, so I can kind of understand. But I wasn't saying anything to anyone specifically. If I had said this if the person who made the post said something a little bit defensive, I would understand. But I wasn't saying it to anyone specifically, to any of these guys specifically. So I wasn't affronting them. Like, I wasn't challenging them personally. They can just tell me their opinion, right? I didn't come at them personally. If I had, this sort of response would make a lot more sense. So anyway, let's go over to the guy that I said was cool. I said, we all care about different things, so I wanted to know. I was like, yeah, so you saw this response. I think this was to the guy we just saw. And he goes, Mr. Roboto, Demodern Man, says, because they used to be awesome, and now all these IT dropouts can't code in anything except Unreal, make crappy games. And so that's where I wasn't sure if he would have a real conversation with me or not, because I know people have a very passionate response to modern games suck, and I feel like there's a very nuanced conversation. I've had that on my podcast with Dayla many times. I'll link that in the thing below, because we go over all the sides, and you would be very surprised by some of my opinions if you're trying to lump me in with a specific group. I come from all directions, and I change my mind a lot, and not in a wishy-washy way, but if somebody disproves me, or I find that my opinion, I get more information, then I'm not afraid to change my mind and evolve. And so I personally state things in a way where if I feel I'm right, then I'm going to say it as though I'm right. And I feel like people sometimes think that's stubbornness. And so if you also have a lot of confidence and you get called stubborn a lot, I empathize with you, because it's not stubbornness. I do change my mind quite often. It's that I say things in a very confident way, because I understand that that's how I understand it at the time. If I'm wrong, prove me wrong. And then we can, move along. But I'm going to say it in a confident way, because that's the information and the understanding I have at that time. Wishy-washy is when people hear one disagreement and then they're like, oh yeah, maybe. No, I am going to be confident in my position if I'm going to say something. Otherwise, I'm going to do what I did here and ask a question. Jeez. Can't even do that nowadays. And so I wasn't sure, but I still, I always try to have conversations with people when they're being respectful with me, and I'm looking for information, and this guy seemed open to it. So I said, it's a real question, recording a video on it today. You guys saw that this was the tweet at the beginning of the video. And most of those people aren't going to see like, oh, she's making a video out of me being a bully. This is the best way to call them out that I know, because probably more eyes will get on it here, over time, at least for some of these videos. So, because I never know what can take off here, versus on Twitter, it's a fleeting thought. Here, it's forever. So bullies wave. So Mr. Roboto's cool. He said, they appreciate the extra work on certain details. Nowadays, games are so barren and devs got so lazy, you tend to miss that extra care. And I don't think devs are lazy. This is where we disagree. I think that there are probably a lot more devs that care than the tippy-top strategists, to be honest, if we want to get like real deep on it. I think that's where a lot of the problems lie. And I'm not saying that's for every department and every game. I know there's people that care there too. But the people who are making the decisions are often the people who have the monetary data and the people who are making decisions based on the monetary data. And there's a lot we can get into with that. I have some videos for that kind of stuff too. They don't even do mirrors anymore without telling you to buy a $5,000 GPU. So I think he's saying they're not going to put the effort into putting a mirror in a game, which is something that I've heard is a lot of effort, kind of like hair, unless it's something where the graphics are so good that you have to have a really expensive GPU. I think that's what he's getting at. And I'd agree with that, actually. I can see where he's saying lazy there with that follow-up sentence. And sometimes I think it's just opportunity cost, but there could be an inherent laziness there. But sometimes it's just that the games are really big and they're bigger than they used to be. So I think there's a lot of nuance here, and I think he appreciates that too from the conversations we had. It's a good point overall. I personally miss destruction physics, which I love destruction physics, so I'm here for it. Loving old games like Red Faction or newer like Control. When I'm in a big fight, it flies all over the place. It adds to the cool factor and the rush. Thank God Havok just came back with a cool tech demo. So this was a really good example. If you want to see a game with great game physics that he just recommended, go check out Havok. I haven't played it, but I love that kind of stuff. So sounds cool. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. You can see both sides. You can see that I've qualified and interestedly looked at both sides. I'm not trying to push an agenda on you too. You would legitimately like to analyze things and objectively ask questions. And of course, even my objective questions are going to come with some bias when I type them out in 20 seconds. So I promise I'm not like trying to affront you and your entire family, which somebody did say something about like, stop embarrassing you and your entire family. Like it just, we didn't even get into some of those, but they start getting real mean towards the bottom. It's just, you know what? Should we look at those? Hold on. This was partially to call people out. You guys want to see it? Here, hold on. They start attacking me. They start putting my picture and say DEI because I'm a woman that's not like fully white passing, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if they just think I'm ugly. This is the second time in like a week that I've been bullied with my PFP. So I don't know if I should just go hide in a hole or something, but they aren't going to make me because I have too much to do and it's just my face. If you don't like it, I probably don't like yours either. You're trolling, right? Only a woman would ask such a stupid question. Go to bed and stop disgracing your family. Your reason why games suck ass these days. AAA games with quadruple A prices that are haphazardly put together. Why am I at fault for this? Why am I being blamed for the entire industry because I asked a question about game physics? Holy. So I like tried to answer. I shouldn't have even. I did this for the video and then I got too deep into it at some points, but I don't even know what this video is, but there you are. That's the internet. Hope you enjoyed watching me get bullied. If you have thoughts, I would like to hear them. I like to say these things to kind of start a conversation, get my analytical brain flowing. I'm literally making spreadsheets about Assassin's Creed right now to prove and disprove some things. I've learned some things already in just a few shakes of the experiment we're doing there. I used to work in financial analysis for a living for the better part of a decade. The funny part of people coming at me at any given time is I had my MBA at 23. I had a very lucrative career before this. I just felt like there wasn't a lot of meaning in it. And here I get to make people smile, ask questions that I find more interesting. And while gaming might not even seem that meaningful, I think the gamification of life leads to a lot of really important things. And the more that I study it and the more that I learn about things like game physics and why people care about it, I'm learning about human behavior. And by learning about human behavior, I can learn more about the world around me and potentially change the world for better, be happy, and make other people happy. It gives me options, basically, if I understand human behavior better. It's part of the top of Maslow's hierarchy. It's what I like doing. I just enjoy learning. I'm a nerd. So if you too are a nerd and you made it to the end of this video and you got some enjoyment out of it, either by learning or thought I was funny or don't hate women, I don't know, or do hate women and you were just hate watching, you know, I'm MADkurious. Whether you're love watching or hate watching, I hope you learned something about why everyone's obsessed with game physics, because it's either that game physics are reactive, they show that the game is reacting to you and so that you feel cared about, or so that you can more easily look at other elements of the game, or you feel like the game makers actually care about you and that's important to you because you feel alone in your life otherwise, or you feel like you have some control in life, or if you just find it more fun because when the arrows stick in the tree, you can then say, look, these arrows stick in the tree, and you can point it out and feel really cool. I don't know. Whatever it is that's your vibe, let me know. Because there are some really cool things that you can do with and without real physics in games. I think that that's been proven time and time again. So if you have thoughts, please feel free to share them. If you are mean, I'll put you on blast. So if you're not, then we can have a conversation. Maybe we can even be friends. I'm MADkurious, and I will see you in the next one.